This video, sponsored by the California Department of Education, covers how to administer the CAASPP interim assessments, which includes the Smarter Balanced interim assessments for English Language Arts and Literacy, or ELA, and mathematics, as well as the California Science Test, or CAST, interim assessments. Let's first go over the overall steps to administer an interim assessment in a standardized manner before going through the steps in more detail. First, the test administrator, or TA, will set up a test session in the TA interface, which includes selecting the assessment or assessments that students will be taking. Second, students log on to the secure browser. Next, before the students can get into the test itself, the TA will need to verify and approve the students, tests, and accessibility resources. Once approved by the TA, students can begin testing. After testing is complete, hand scoring must be completed if the assessment contained responses that need to be hand scored, and then results will appear in the California Educator Reporting System, or CERS. Those steps for completing hand scoring will be covered in other videos in this series. Now let's go into a bit more depth on the steps of administration. The test administrator, or TA interface, is accessed with logon credentials for TOMS, or the Test Operations Management System. If you have questions about getting access with an appropriate role in TOMS, contact your district or school testing coordinator. Once logged on, the TA can select the Start a New Session Now button to bring up the test selection page. All interim assessments are color-coded with the same color. If there are initial, alternate, or summative assessments available to select, those assessments will be shown in a different color. Care should be taken in selecting the tests, especially once the summative assessments and the alternate assessments display in the selection window. In this example, we're going to select the Grade 6 English Language Arts Brief Write for demonstration purposes by expanding the appropriate categories. To find the desired assessment, you can also filter results by grade level or content area. At any time, you can also use the search function by selecting the magnifying glass icon to search for words in the title of the assessment you want to administer. Before starting the session, select the session type of in-person or remote or hybrid. Then, select a manner of administration. If students are taking the assessment without assistance, as they would do on a summative assessment, choose standardized. Otherwise, choose non-standardized. Keep in mind that the manner of administration selection does not affect the test itself or the results shown in CERS, but the manner of administration will appear as a data tag in CERS for educators to consider when viewing results as a way of distinguishing whether the student's results are valid for comparison or analysis. Select the Start Operational Session button to create the testing session. On the following screen, a session ID will be displayed. This session ID should be given to students so they can log on. Consider writing it in a location visible to all testing students where testing students and the administrator can refer to it. Students will log on by opening the secure browser or the web-based student testing interface if they are taking the interim assessment remotely. They will then enter their first name as it appears in the school's records for their SSID and the session ID and select Sign In. The students will then see the Is This You screen. If the information is correct, they will select the Yes button. The Your Test screen will then display all available assessments that were selected for the session by the test administrator. If multiple assessments are available within the same session, make sure that students know which assessment they should select from this screen. Once an assessment is selected, they will see the Waiting for Approval screen until the test administrator approves them for testing. As students begin to log on and select their assessments, the TA will be able to observe which students are awaiting approval. Select the Approvals tab to open the Approvals and Student Test Settings screen. Students with default test settings are students whose test settings, also known as accessibility resources, have not been changed in TOMS. Students with custom test settings are those who have had at least one test setting changed. all test settings should be reviewed and finalized before the student begins the test. These settings can be found by selecting the View icon in the See Details column. On this screen, certain settings can be modified. Note that if students already have test settings assigned in TOMS, they should appear at this step and will also appear for the summative tests. A feature of the TA interface that is unique to the interim assessments is the ability for test administrators to modify test settings. However, changes made here for interim assessments are temporary and will only last for the duration of this interim assessment test session. If a student should have a certain resource for future tests, including the summative assessments, it should be entered into TOMS by a site or district testing coordinator, so make sure to coordinate with the appropriate staff to get students the test settings they need. After all students on the Approvals and Student Test Settings list have been approved or denied, individually or all at once, the approval screen automatically closes. Once this has been done, the user should carefully monitor student progress in the Operational Test Session tab. Certain students can also be pinned to keep them at the top of the list if they need closer monitoring. This table will show when students' tests have been completed and submitted. After tests are submitted, no further changes to the tests can be made. To end a test session, select the Stop Session button. Only exit or log off the Test Administrator interface after stopping a test session. If the browser is accidentally closed while students are testing, the session will remain open until it times out after 30 minutes. To re-access the test session, open the web browser and navigate back to the Test Administrator interface to enter the active session ID. Once an assessment has been completed and submitted by the student, if the interim assessment taken contained any questions requiring hand scoring, those answers will appear in the Teacher Hand Scoring System, or THSS, within about 20 minutes. Once scored and submitted, it will take another 20 minutes for the results to appear in SIRS. For assessments without questions requiring hand scoring, it will take approximately 20 minutes after testing for results to appear in SIRS. There is more information about SIRS and how to complete hand scoring in other videos in this series. Keep in mind that interim comprehensive assessments for ELA and mathematics consist of two separate parts: the computer-based test and the performance task that need to be administered and completed by the student in order to retrieve a score. Thank you for viewing this video on how to administer the CAASPP interim assessments. For more information and to view other videos in the series, please visit bity.ly/IA video series. This video was brought to you by the California Department of Education.